So yes, we're live. Good morning to everyone. Thank you for being here during your lunch break. But what I really want to do is I want to give thanks to these three brave people because we tried last year to organize this panel. And every time I try to reach someone, I say, Javier, no, thank you. I don't want to be asked about AI and audio. So we try again this year. And these brave men and women decided to step up and talk about it. So I really want to congratulate them first. And also to the Frankfurt Book Fair, as you know, that we have written a white paper this year. Basically, we have seen a change of mindset. As I said last year, people had like very dubious, so very cautious mindset about AI and audio. And actually, listening to the CEO, Simon and Sister, this morning, you can really see that change of mindset to one that basically everyone is testing. Talking to, when we did the report to more than 40 publishers, groups across the world, everyone is doing something. They're testing different tools in order to validate what are the benefits as well as the challenges and the learning curve. So we're going to go deep into that analysis, and we have three different perspectives. We have Amma Danson, CEO of your name of a company. I got to get it right because Books Audio, basically focused in the emerging markets in Africa. And also we have Ricard Lumberg, I always pronounce it incorrectly, also CEO of Aniada One, the last kid on the block in terms of AI, audio, and other formats. And then we also have Ben Goodward, the digital online director of Hachette UK. Okay, so thank you very much again. And we're going to start with a brief one-sentence thought from each one of you in regards to where you see the biggest disruption of the biggest change coming through AI in the audiobook industry. Amma, please go first.
So for me, it's about production. AI is helping to speed up translation. In Africa, we've got so many languages, so many books that have not been digitized or turned into audio. So the benefits that AI can bring for production process is where I'm really excited.
Okay. Yeah, we'll go deep into it, but production is one of the biggest areas, and especially in non-English languages. Also, we've seen from the Spotify panel previously that that's where the growth is coming from. So I think it could be a tool to help publishers and platforms to have more content available for future listeners. Ricard, good morning.
Yeah, I'm on the same track. It's the big impact is the economical part of it right now. So it lowers production costs both in translation and in audiobook by up to 90%, which makes 95% of the books that hasn't been recorded in audio before or translated viable to do so. So the publisher question will not be, do we afford to translate? It will be, which markets do we go to?
Okay, very interesting. We'll talk about those numbers that you shared, that 90% benefit or cost reduction. Does it come? We'll talk later. If it comes in the first year, year two, year three, because during the conversations in the white paper, I seen it comes more in the year two, year three than the year one. But your experience will be very valuable. And Ben,
I think the biggest immediate impact is obviously to the human voice and human narrators. We've been working with them for many years, and it's protecting and thinking about how we continue to work productively with human voices alongside a new opportunity that arises with AI.
Very good. Actually, you've been one of the publishing houses that has been testing different tools in the last years. Could you please share with us your initial lessons learned or key takeaways that you want to share with the publishing community?
Yeah, I think the testing itself and setting out the tests is not the difficult bit. It's really thinking about the protections and the elements that we want to put in place with the companies that we're working with and testing with in order to ensure that we're acting on behalf of our authors, our rights holders, thinking about our narrators and working with them. You mentioned last year how difficult it was to get people on. I think there's been a real sea change in terms of narrators coming to us, authors, agents, really wanting us and asking us to be the experts in this area and not necessarily sort of taking the leap or wanting anything immediately, but to know what the options are and to work around that. And I think it's really important for us as publishers to offer that.
I really think that's a very important takeaway. I think it's the publishing community the ones have to lead and be the experts, not the technical companies. The technical companies are the tools that you will use to provide those services that you've been providing authors in other formats, like print or ebooks. So I think that's
Definitely agree with that,
That's a
yeah.
good point. And your testing has been on the production, or you have also tested, I don't know, in marketing or any other areas?
Both. The production side obviously has its own challenges in terms of really getting those agreements in place, but we've also been working across a number of different companies to really explore the opportunities there. There are so many sort of edge cases in terms of how we use that. Every week, every day, there's a new question. Can we use AI in this way? Can I explore this avenue further? We need to be able to assure our colleagues as well that we know where and how they can use AI and really explore those opportunities more.
Totally agree. In the white paper that I mentioned, you will see more than 160 tools that we identify jointly with all the people who collaborated in the report. I mean, they are the tools most commonly used today by the publishing community in different processes. It could be production, it could be metadata, it could be marketing, it could be distribution. So there's a lot of different tools for different uses, and I think you can have a look and decide where to start first. Rico, actually, you've gone beyond the testing phase. You're providing services to publishers around these opportunities. Could you please explain those?
Yeah, we've been in production for 18 months now and produced around 180 ISBNs to 8 languages and to 14 markets. And we work with 80 authors, and some of them are through publishers, and some of them are through agents. So we really do quality assessments all the time with both the agents and the publishers, but also with readers and translators and listeners to the audiobooks, because I think the quality assessment should not just be linguistically, it should also be towards the reader or the listener, to make sure it's really culturally adapted to that genre and so on.
Very good. And which genres, which book categories are the most keen today to be used? More demanded?
Yeah, you can always go for the low-hanging fruits for the commercial genres, and we see that some of those have more easily translated style and tone of voice, but some don't, because they're very culturally contexted, where a lot of media connections to that market or cultural connections to that market. So we are working cross genres. So a lot of biographies, especially if they're written about someone not known in the original market, then it has this kind of tone and the description of that person which fits all markets, basically. So there's a lot of small nuances within the text, within the genres that are more important than the genre itself. So it's a lot about curation, it's about publishing know-how, it's about marketing knowledge. So right now we're shooting very broad, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, actually we're starting from scratch, so there are opportunities almost everywhere.
Yeah.
Emma, when we were doing the report, you and I discussed a lot about, yes, there's a lot of opportunities, especially in emerging markets, of using AI tools. But at the same time, there's a big challenge in regards to who owns the infrastructure. Could you please share with us your thoughts around this? It's political, but at the same time, I think it's a publishing priority.
Okay. So I think for me, there are 2 do's and don'ts around this particular area. The first one is around the humans, the voices themselves. We've been experimenting ourselves and just started dabbling with AI audio in audiobooks, and we're finding that the diversity of voices, accents, African voices, accents, dialects are all sort of missing from the databases of voices. And so it's so important that we need to have the linguistic diversity. So we have to include African voices, African languages, African accents, African dialects, and similarly in the metadata as well. We need that metadata to include our voices. We see a lot of generic. It's interesting what you said. Generic. I call them the Wakanda African voices, the bits of East African, South African, West African accents all mixed together, and it's deemed an African voice. But there are some tools, fabulous tools. 11 Labs is one that we're working with that allows you to actually work on customizing or crafting a voice. So I think that's just so important that we can't leave the human beings out. And how the voices are brought into those databases, I don't know where they're getting them from. I'm encouraging more of our narrators to offer their voices to be cloned to start, developing our own data sets. Otherwise, we're going to rely on these generic ones that are available. Yeah.
How have they responded to that?
A bit cautious, a bit, wary, a little bit nervous, but I'm saying, it's better you do it with us through a responsible service where you will get a contract and you get some remuneration than to have your voice cloned from, SoundCloud. I suspect there's a lot coming in from public, services like SoundCloud, where a lot of Africans put their, poetry and their music and their voices out there. So we're just beginning to start looking at how do we craft these, credible, legitimate contracts for AI.
Actually, one of the key takeaways when we did the research was this trend that we've seen in different markets, from Latin America to the French-speaking markets, to the actually also the English markets, although you're much more mature, of making sure that audio has some key leveling in terms of where the voice comes from, and if it's a replica voice, if there's a license behind it, so the narrator has agreed to license the voice and is compensated for its use in different purposes, because it could be audiobooks, but it could be also for marketing of the audiobook and for marketing assets. So I think we will see that ongoing trend of having more transparency in regards to the voices that are available, and not just scrapping any audio available in the web in order to create those synthetic voices that are available. Let's go. I know it's always boring to talk about metadata and labeling, but I think it's necessary to do it well or correctly from the scratch, because I think it's going to be much harder to go back, 2 years from now and redefine, what should be the policies and the standards. What are your, how you doing today, the labeling of your audio production? If it's replica, if it's synthetic voice, if it's third party, whatever, what are your lessons learned and what you will recommend to the different professionals?
There are a framework already in place that we use that also differs between generated voices from the ground up. Then you use AI and the name to that voice, or actually that's AI voice, but we use also a name because we want to show this voice is used in these different books. If you like it, then you can continue. And when we have clone voices with an author, for instance, we use the author's name but mark it as AI or clone. So we're adhering to the principles, and I think the quality of the productions is key. If a listener is going to use it or listen to it, rather than the markup. I think now in the beginning, the markup is very important, and it will be important also because you sometimes want to choose differently, and some genres you will know that maybe AI isn't there. But I will say the hesitancy right now and the use for a markup is more important now than it will be later. I think the quality will be the key to that.
I think you mentioned one key aspect, and I think is doing replica voices of authors that are like celebrities or politicians. Usually these people are not professional narrators, but having the author voice brings a lot of value to the story, because usually these stories are personal stories. It could be, as I said, it could be a sports people, it could be someone that is, basically sharing their personal life. and using a replica of their voice, it will be a solution that before it was not available. I mean, a lot of publishing houses had to basically renounce having that extra layer of personal experience being narrated by the author by doing a replica with AI today is a go-to-market that I see more and more publishing houses saying this could be an entry door.
I think the same goes for very popular narrators that all of a sudden can narrate 150 more books with the licensed voice. So they still get paid, of course, but they license their voice to increase the pace of their production.
But do you think everything will sound the same? I agree with you, and I sometimes go into different streaming platforms and I listen to an audiobook, and then I really like the way it was narrated, and I click on the name of the narrator and I say, what else do they have in this platform? And I found myself listening to a book that I will have never read, but just because that voice was amicable to me and facilitated the entry to that story, I finished, that book, and I discovered a lot of books via the narrator. Won't everything sound the same, especially in minority language where there's not, as you mentioned, Emma, not a lot of diversity in voices today? Or I'm getting too scared for nothing.
I think it's a really valid point. Our position is that we want to make sure the author, is happy with the recording, and the interpretation of the book, and that is as key as anything. I was speaking with someone the other day and said, imagine if Train Spotting was read in a Cornish accent or something like that. It completely, destroys the intention of the book. So yeah, very key that we work with author and agent to ensure that what's being created is what we intend for the readers to listen to.
Okay. And you, Emma?
I think similarly, just recently in Ghana, we had the celebration of our first president, Kwame Nkrumah, and there was a lot going on with Kwame Nkrumah's speeches and reports and books that he'd authored. And I'd been thinking, I think I read somewhere about how, I think it's Hachette or HarperCollins, one of them is using Judy, or going to use Judy Garland's voice. It's got permissions from the estate to voice a production of The Wizard of Oz. And I thought, wow. And I was thinking, I wonder what the legal processes are involved in getting permissions from an estate to use. For example, Kwame Nkrumah, our first president, had a very distinctive voice. He was from the northern region. And I thought, it would be wonderful if his book could be voiced in his voice. But I agree with you about, we have a few voices that we started, and as you said, I think there are 3, actually. So those 3 voices narrating everything would get, I think very boring after a while. And so how do we get the range, the right diversity? And especially in Africa, where there are just so many, well, everywhere, dialects, accents, in English, there's so many varieties of English spoken, and it's the same. How do we get that diversity of accents and representation so people can really appreciate hearing their own voices? So for me, it's something that we're still looking to figure out how to do that.
And based on your answer, you made me thought that, 5 years ago, I was here in Frankfurt buying rights for a platform and with different agents. And in every single contract, I had this clause that said you're prohibited to use AI voices. And at that time, we said, okay, we're not going to do it anyway, so let's move forward, let's close the deal. But have you seen that change of mindset in the agents' rights whole? Be more open for AI production?
I think they want to know more about it and what the opportunities are. Rights is obviously one of the key issues that we want to ensure are protected and that we get right. You can drift into all sorts of different areas with regards to having multiple voices, having dramatic rights. There's a lot of rights that will begin to blur with one another, and I wouldn't say they're sort of chomping at the bit to assign us rights. It's more about
but there is an evolution.
Questions. Absolutely, yeah. I think a lot has changed in the last year and will continue to change.
Okay.
We have in our narrators' contracts the clauses that say we will not use your voice for any, without permissions. But we haven't actually even started to ask authors and publishers, would you be okay with, we haven't got there yet. We're just thinking about producing a catalog of voices that they can now appreciate and then approach.
And based on the data that I was listening to the previous panel and the major growth, and I've seen it not only Spotify, I've seen it in many different platforms, people below 35 years of age that are coming to audio, especially from podcasting, and they're embracing audiobook listening as a complement. Do you think that new generation are more open to listen to audio, synthetic voices, replica voices? Because actually they're consuming a lot of that already in media, or they don't want to read a 100-page report in the university, and they upload it to a service and they get a 20-minute summary of that report in an audio format. Are we going to see the cultural shift that we're going to have listeners? Because one of the worries 2 years ago from many publishing houses was that we fear retaliation from the listeners saying, this is not good. Have you have any feedback on that? Or
We've been doing a lot of listener quality assessment with a big group of listeners. Some of them has been kind of opposed to AI before, but when we do the quality assessments and do like blind testing between voices, everyone is very impressed by the result, and some of them are shifting as well. And I think also in publishing or agents, we're primarily working with a bit smaller publishers and a bit smaller agents right now, because we know the pace for decision making at those are a bit faster. And if they see quality, they will be ready to go.
For us, we are so far behind in terms of books available that I think it's certainly something that the users will embrace. Just to get a copy of the book in audio, whether it's very high quality or bad quality or not, it's better than not having it. And we had a funny incident a couple of months ago. There was an author, big banker, who had very interesting life, did a series of books on his life and his bank. And I've been approaching him to try to get an audiobook done. And then next thing, his agent calls me and says, his young nephew, who living in the UK, has come to him and said, I can do AI, I can let AI do your, clone your voice and do the book for you. And I was like, okay. And he was happy to listen. I said, well, have you got all the considerations about, ethical control? And he hadn't thought about that, but this young man had come to him and said, Uncle, I can do your, get your voice cloned and do your book in a fraction of the cost. And he was considering it. And that really thought, oh, wow, these young people are there already offering. And so when I get back, I'm going to meet this young man and find out what's he doing in this, what's his experience, what's his background in voice and audiobook. Is it just a one-off thing he wants to do for his uncle, or does he have the expertise? Is he someone we could talk to? So I'm really curious. But yeah, he was like, no, my nephew will take care of it. And I was like,
the opportunity is there.
yeah.
Okay, we have less than 2 minutes to go. What will be your key takeaway recommendation for publishers that are starting this learning testing phase?
Yeah, I think it's around really establishing what you're comfortable with in terms of the way that you deal with your key relationships and represent authors and the content creators. So it's really knowing your stuff and making sure that you've got the answers when they ask those difficult questions.
And have you started to test only in English, or have you added any other foreign languages?
We've predominantly concentrated on English.
In English first. Okay, good. Ricard, your key
my
takeaway?
key advice is to go from theoretical to practical and to really try it small scale, and we do that for free. So ricard.anjara.1, you can try out a translation or a voice sample. I think that's also one of the most important things, to see that the quality actually works, and then move in the direction and ethics and all of the things, sort that out afterwards.
Actually, in the report, we have estimated by the end of this decade There will be almost 2 million audiobooks available in the market in different languages. In English today, you have about 1 million. But in Spanish, for example, there's less than 50,000. In French, there's less than 30,000. So I think this will be an opportunity for more global languages being represented in the audiobook space. And Amma, finally, your key takeaway before we go?
So we're encouraging our authors and publishers to think about using AI, especially since we have these huge backlists of titles to be produced, and just to make sure that you have a contract with someone who's thinking through all the issues, the ownership, the IP, where it belongs, who's handling it, and to try, to experiment and to try.
Very good. Well, thank you very much again. And most likely next year, everyone will want to be on the stage talking about how successful their AI projects have been so far. So thank you very much for your time and your interest, and see you. Thank you.